I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Dr Kieran Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to have been granted this adjournment debate as it provides a welcome opportunity to put on the record in this new Parliament the benefits of deep geothermal could deliver for our country, and in particular what it could deliver for parts of our country that most need investment, whilst making a contribution to the vital issue of energy security. Helping me in this effort more broadly is the Deep Geothermal APPG that the Renewable Energy Association help administer, and I'm delighted to spot the members for Truro and Falmouth, Camborne and Redruth and Rushcliffe in the Chamber from the APPG, which provides me with an opportunity to recognise them and thank them for the work that they are doing for the cause. Deep geothermal energy remains an underutilised resource in the UK, despite its potential to provide reliable, renewable heat in particular, but also power. With growing pressure to secure our energy future and decarbonise heating, now is the time to give this technology the attention it deserves. As we work towards energy security and decarbonisation, we must explore every viable renewable energy source. Deep geothermal offers a stable and sustainable solution, yet it remains largely untapped in the UK. To unlock its potential, the government must take the lead, providing the necessary support to get projects off the ground and demonstrate their long-term viability. One of the biggest challenges we face in the journey to net zero is the decarbonisation of heating, and it must be treated as a priority. The UK has more than 28.5 million homes and 1.9 million other buildings, including offices, hospitals, shops, warehouses, the vast majority of which rely on gas boilers for both heating and hot water. These buildings alone account for nearly 1/5 of the UK's total emissions. The Climate Change Committee has identified decarbonising heat as one of the most difficult yet essential steps in reaching net zero. Achieving net zero by 2050 requires us to use every tool at our disposal. While much of the government's attention has been focused on air and ground source heat pumps, alongside other electrification methods, which have an important and certainly dominant role to play, converting the entire housing stock to these technologies will put immense pressure on our electricity grid and supply chains. This is where deep geothermal stands out. It offers a reliable, low-carbon solution for heating that's not dependent on there being sun or wind. It's there all year round, whatever the weather, and it's been successfully deployed in other countries to great effect. Delighted to.
Jane Kirkham.
Does the honourable member agree that geothermal as a baseload energy source that can be developed quickly should be included in the government's Clean Power Plan and have the priority that affords for grid connections?
Dr Kieran Mullen.
I fully support the efforts of the honourable member in raising this, and she'll know from her own constituency in the local projects there that we're making a start, but it isn't enough, and it needs to be part of the broader plan in a comprehensive way. And when I first learned about deep geothermal technology, I thought it sounded too good to be true, an environmentally friendly, reliable and cost-effective source of heat and power right underneath our feet. But the more I explored it, the more I realised it truly lives up to its promise. If I can briefly explain the technology, deep geothermal taps into naturally occurring hot water deep underground to produce significant amounts of usable heat and energy. Making use of this is no different to the way in which the Romans built their baths above hot springs. We just run a pipe down instead of relying on the water to make its own way to the surface. People sometimes wonder if this technology is fracking Mark II. Fracking involves the use of high pressure to crack the rocks to create artificial flows. Like Europe, we're able to have access to resources of naturally flowing water that simply need to be tapped. Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth and the United Nations all support deep geothermal in light of its environmental benefits. A site is typically 1 to 2 acres. It doesn't take up huge swathes of farmland like solar panels can, or erect wind turbines that some communities think detract from the local landscape. Oh, indeed.
Moon.
I thank the honourable member for giving us the opportunity to discuss the potential and barriers of geothermal. And when it comes to planning, in my constituency of Camborne, Redruth and Hale, we have businesses at the forefront of both shallow geothermal energy through ground source heat pumps developed by Kensa, but also deep geothermal systems being pioneered by Geothermal Energy Limited's deep geothermal power project, soon to become operational. But does the honourable member agree with me that industry needs government support, including, as he's just mentioned, planning reform to reduce deployment timescales and a UK geothermal licensing scheme to calculate the size of the geothermal asset and how the asset is protected in law?
Dr Kieran Mullen.
I do agree with the member, and actually I think I go on to say that the government needs an entire strategy in place for deep geothermal, and that will hopefully then draw its attention to these different pieces of the puzzle, including planning and licensing, that are so important. And actually, not too far away from the Honourable Gentleman is the Eden Project. And when it comes to environmental credentials, I think people see the Eden Project as bywords for environmentalism in this country. And they're pioneering this technology, which I think is a powerful testimony to its environmental benefits. But since the closure of the non-domestic renewable heat incentive in 2021, just unfortunately as interest was peaking from industry, unlike solar and wind at their early beginnings, deep geothermal has been without comprehensive government support to develop the market. There have been encouraging breakthroughs, as the member opposite mentioned. In 2023, the UK's first operational deep geothermal plant to open in 37 years went online at the Eden Project, as I mentioned. And deep geothermal also made its historic debut in the allocation round 5 of Contracts for Difference, with 3 projects from Geothermal Engineering Limited securing a total of 12 megawatts of capacity. And at Landgarth Garden Village, the Green Heat Networks Fund is now supporting the development of a geothermal-powered heat network to turn that resource into local supply. These successes show that with the right backing, geothermal can become a key player in our transition to clean, sustainable energy. But these are ad hoc wins and aren't providing the sort of comprehensive, dedicated approach we need. As it stands, the UK has fallen far behind other countries that have for some time harnessed the potential of deep geothermal. If we look across Europe, as of 2022, there were 74 projects in France, 31 projects in the Netherlands and 190 projects in Germany. Deep geothermal energy heats more than 250,000 homes in Paris, and the French government aims to increase the number of schemes by 40% by 2030. Munich is pouring in €1 billion through to 2035 to develop deep geothermal and make the city's heating carbon neutral. In fact, Germany is already producing more than 350 megawatts annually, and the government are targeting at least 100 new geothermal projects. Across Europe alone, hot sedimentary aquifers have the potential to provide 8 terawatts of heat at 90 degrees Celsius, 30 times more than the district heating systems that currently serve 70 million people across the region. The potential is enormous. I will.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. I would be looked upon very badly if I didn't briefly mention the British Geological Survey, which is based in my constituency. He talks there about Europe and what's happening in Europe, but would he agree with me that in the British Geological Survey, in this country, we have one of the world's experts in studying geology and geothermal technology and could therefore help unlock what we're doing in this country around deep geothermal?
Dr. Kieran Mullen.
The member opposite is absolutely right, and I join him in paying tribute to the BGS, an organisation I've had the pleasure of working with over recent years, and they've done some fantastic work at mapping and identifying the potential, and I know they've got the appetite with the funding to go even further and help reduce that uncertainty by helping developers and investors understand the resources underneath our feet. The UK is already a world leader in tackling climate change and clean energy, having been the first major economy to halve our emissions, and renewables now accounting for more than 50% of electricity, up from just 7% in 2010. With deep sedimentary basins in East Yorkshire and Cheshire, granites in Cornwall and Scotland, hot sedimentary aquifers in Surrey, Dorset and Sussex, my constituency, the UK's unique geography puts us in an ideal position to exploit the benefits of geothermal energy. I will.
Grateful, and I'm really grateful for the work that the Honourable Member has done in this area. York itself has some really rich sources of deep geothermal. The York Central site could heat 30,000 homes in my constituency, yet the local authority and other bodies yet don't have the confidence to be able to bring these projects on board. Does he agree that the government could provide tools and support to enable such projects to come to fruition from planning, but also just that basic understanding?
Dr. Kieran Mullen.
The member opposite is completely right, and forgive me, I think you're also a member of the APBG, and I didn't. The member is also a member of the APBG, and I didn't recognise that at the start. One of the things I think we can do through the APBG, and we had started to do in the last Parliament that I'm trying to reconstitute, is ourselves help local authorities to form a group of those interested local authorities and help and support them, because it is new to them and they don't necessarily have the expertise and understanding. But again, the member is absolutely right. These are the sorts of things that a comprehensive government-led strategy could help address and help close those gaps. But as I said, the resource in Europe, the rocks actually that are being exploited are essentially exactly the same veins of rock that cross the channel. There's no geological difference, there's no less potential than is being exploited in Europe. It's true to say the heat and rocks for deep geothermal electricity are rarer here in the UK, with Cornwall leading the field and where those projects I mentioned are getting across the ground. But I think historically the focus on electricity has caused us to overlook the potential for heat. The Renewable Energy Association worked with Arup to assess the potential for the UK and estimates the UK could support 360 geothermal plants producing 15,000 gigawatts of heat each year. This could supply heating to over 2 million homes through heat networks. Additionally, some of these plants could generate around 400 gigawatts of electricity annually, enough to power a further 15,000 homes. I know the Minister will be looking closely at securing the best possible value for money from every penny being invested into renewable technologies. But I would make 4 points about the way in which this exercise is undertaken, because too narrow a framework would underestimate the benefits of deep geothermal to our economy overall. Firstly, as alluded to earlier, yes, solar and wind are cheaper now, but they didn't used to be. It's the potential trend costs that we need to think about. Secondly, as mentioned, deep geothermal is base load. Unlike solar and wind, this has got to be given due consideration. And thirdly is the question of where the investment will end up. I had the opportunity to work with the Durham Energy Institute as part of a national review into deep geothermal for the previous government. We identified that deep geothermal can play a key role in levelling up, with 6 of the 10 least economically resilient local authorities also having the highest geothermal potential. 44% of the list of high potential locations for deep geothermal fit within the top 100 UK local authorities in need of levelling up. That's 3 times the amount you would expect as a result of chance. Investing in this sector would create thousands of well-paid jobs and drive green growth in the areas that need it the most. And fourth, it also provides a natural transition for oil and gas workers, as many skills like drilling are directly transferable. It is oil and gas companies delivering these projects across Europe, sometimes UK companies. Surely this is the obvious industry to invest in to protect those jobs and businesses as we transition. So how might we go further in the short term? I've worked with the industry to develop a ready-made plan. I would ask the Minister to look closely at proposals that APPG have produced to create a carve-out in the public sector decarbonisation scheme to unlock this opportunity. The PSDS scheme has already played a crucial role in helping public sector buildings transition to low-carbon heating solutions. However, a specific programme could be carved out to support an initial cohort of deep geothermal projects, ensuring that schools, hospitals and other public sector buildings can benefit from this reliable resource. By doing so, the government will not only accelerate the decarbonisation of public infrastructure, but also provide a strong foundation for the wider geothermal industry to scale up and attract investment. I've spoken before in the Chamber about how hospitals are fantastic anchor candidates for deep geothermal plants. Industry leaders have identified that of the 210 NHS hospitals in England and Wales that have been prioritised for decarbonisation due to their high heat demand, 109 overlie potential deep geothermal aquifers. The advantage of working across the NHS is that we can bundle up opportunities to create a bigger investment opportunity. And I know hospitals across the country are already exploring this, including Eastbourne District General Hospital, which services my constituents in Bexhill and Battle. One of the challenges for deep geothermal is scale, cost and uncertainty. Solar and wind are cheaper and are more certain investments. A single geothermal plant is expensive. You can't absolutely guarantee you will tap into the reserves your analysis means you expect to find. By pooling together an investment opportunity of a number of sites, you create economies of scale and can factor in the risk of not all the sites delivering and still make the numbers add up. The private sector is willing and able to invest in such an opportunity. I have personally met a number of capital funds and deep geothermal developers, and they would leap at just such a project. Our estimate is that a dedicated fund of just £15 million for 10 plants at 10 public sector sites could unlock £250 million of private sector investment and kickstart a wider industry. So I would be grateful if the Minister would consider meeting with me and other members of the APPG to discuss this in the near future. Alongside this, there is a powerful argument for a broader geothermal development incentive modelled on the heat incentive, which will provide business confidence that geothermal is part of the energy future for the UK. It could be modelled on contracts for difference, ensuring a competitive process, but by offering scale will again be reducing risk for developments. I know there are concerns about open-ended support for any industry, but the aforementioned REA Arup report modelled support for only an initial wave of 30 projects that would help establish a scaled industry in the UK which could then stand on its own 2 feet. And establishing a deep geothermal strategy is crucial to setting clear targets and providing a long-term roadmap for the sector. Can the Minister advise us if the government will produce one? Government support is key to enabling a route to market for the sector. I know the government is shortly due to publish a review of the comparative costs of deep geothermal. If the Minister could tell us when she expects the review to be published, that would be a welcome update. And I know industry stakeholders that work with the APPG and others would be happy to act as critical friends of that review ahead of publication. Would the Minister be happy to facilitate that? It's so important to ensure that this review has been looked at all the evidence and can make full use of the experience of industry. The APPG also considers and is trying to raise awareness of the benefits of shallow geothermal, as the member opposite mentioned. Whilst very closely related, as you might expect, that industry faces different challenges, but could also offer solutions even more widely than deep geothermal. I know there is significant private sector investment available, and again, we're talking about a technology that could reduce the strain on the electricity-driven grid connections approach. For both sectors, GB Energy might well be expected to play a vital role. Can the Minister confirm my expectation that its remits would extend to heat as much as to electricity? And will she confirm that the mandate from government will ask them to consider deep geothermal specifically? To close, Madam Deputy... thank you,
James Naish.
I thank my member friend for giving way. It was just on that point. It's another thing that the government could not do to help the industry is to make sure that there is an overarching geothermal regulatory regime, which I think it's fair to say that we don't really have yet here in the UK. Is that another thing that he would support being brought forwards?
Kieran Mullen.
I agree with the member that that's one of the steps and pieces of the jigsaw that will further unlock private sector investment. I have to say, in my engagement with the industry, it's slightly further along the chain of the things that they're looking for. The numbers don't add up at all at the minute, let alone whether there was a proper regulatory regime in place. I think as soon as we unlock the numbers, the demand for all these other areas is really going to ramp up, and that's again why we need this thought-through strategy from government where it can anticipate and prepare to bring in those other elements when they become particularly important. To finish, Madam Deputy Speaker, I hope I've done an adequate job of showcasing this industry and its potential. I think everything we've learned over recent years is that we need to take advantage of every opportunity, build the biggest coalition, deploy the largest possible workforce and spread the benefits of decarbonising as widely as possible if we're going to succeed and bring the country with us in the challenge. I can't think of a better way of doing that than by putting dedicated resources into deep geothermal. I know it could bring benefits to my constituents and the constituents of many other members and unlock hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds of investment into our economy. I look forward to hearing the Minister's plans and ambitions, which I hope will get us there.
Minister Miatta Fahnbulleh.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to start by thanking the Honourable Member for Bexhill and Battle for bringing this important issue to the attention of the House and for the contributions of my honourable friends and the valuable way in which they have engaged in this debate. The Honourable Member has been a great champion of deep geothermal energy in recent years, and the role he has played in the formation of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Deep Geothermal is commendable. I was very pleased to attend their meeting in December, and I'm grateful for both the engaged but the constructive discussion that we had. Let me just start by saying that I agree with the Honourable Member that there is a huge opportunity here, and I want to echo the Honourable Member's desire for action and pace. Madam Deputy Speaker, I share that desire for action and pace, and let me just say why briefly. He will know, as I know, that we are coming up the worst cost of living crisis that we've seen in a generation, and energy has been at the very heart of that crisis. The reality is that for too many people, energy is unaffordable, and it is increasingly out of reach for people that absolutely rely on it as an essential good. And we are determined as a government to fix that. And that means we need to take action to lower energy bills by breaking our reliance on international fossil fuel markets and sprinting towards clean, homegrown power. This is why the government is so committed and we are running at our Clean Power by 2030 mission, but it's also why our Warm Homes Plan is absolutely critical. And let me reassure him that geothermal power it has a critical role to play in our energy mix, following its success in the 5th auction round of Contracts for Difference. I agree with the Honourable Member that geothermal energy does represent an important opportunity, and if he hears nothing else I say today, please hear that. It has the potential to deliver energy and heat that is clean and secure, reducing our reliance on fossil fuel markets. As mentioned in the Honourable Member's speech, geothermal energy could also support a just transition, and we are acutely aware of this by creating thousands of jobs that use skills from our oil, gas and coal mining sectors. The government provides financial support for geothermal projects today and will continue to do so, and the critical thing is ensuring that this is done at an acceptable cost to consumers and in an environmentally friendly way. The most widespread potential for deep geothermal in the UK, which the Honourable Member mentioned, is low-carbon heat source for heat networks. I'm convinced that heat networks have a really important role to play as we roll out clean heat and as we upgrade millions of homes across the country. And I think there is the opportunity for us to grow their market share from 3% that it is today to 20% by 2050. Now, one of my first visits as the Minister for Energy and Consumer was the Mersey Heat Network, where heat from Leeds and Liverpool Canal is being used to provide hot water and low-carbon power for thousands of people thanks to a water source heat pump. It's a great example of how communities can benefit from local energy sources, which is what the Honourable Member is advocating in this debate, what my honourable friends are advocating in this debate, and I completely commend and support. And I think there are significant geothermal success stories, such as in Gateshead, the first mine water heat network to become operational in the UK. This received £5.9 million from our heat network investment project. That money enabled the council and Gateshead Energy Company to install 5 kilometres of new heat network pipes and 6 megawatt water source heat pump. Today, the network heats 350 council homes and the Baltic Arts Centre with 270 more homes to be added. Now, the Honourable Member referred to the public sector scheme. Geothermal heat projects supply public sector sites are eligible to apply for support provided they meet the scheme eligibility criteria. And again, I agree with him, there is a big opportunity here. Any changes to the scheme, I would add, however, would need to be considered once the current spending round, as he would expect me to say, is completed. But let me reassure him of this. I would be very happy to meet the Honourable Member and members of the APPG at this time to discuss the proposals. Yes.
The point to emphasise is that the current scheme is based on the idea that you go project by project, and that just undermines the ability to bundle something up, bundle the risk, which is so vital to deep geothermal. I think that's the key change that we're looking for, an opportunity for a number of sites to be pulled together, and that will be what is most attractive to investors.
Miatta, Fahnbulleh.
Thank you to the Honourable Member. Look, we are keen to think about creative ways in which we can unlock the potential for investment. So I'm very keen to meet with him. I'm very keen to meet with members of the APPG. I give him that reassurance so we can hear the proposals. The Honourable Member, I think, has made, not just today, but over recent years, a convincing case for the merits of pursuing deep geothermal. The government remains committed to exploring renewable energy opportunities afforded by our geography and our geology. But he will understand, I hope, that the priority now, and the thing that my boss has tasked me with, is developing the Warm Homes Plan. And it would be premature, I think, for the government to set a geothermal strategy with detailed targets in advance of this. So it's a question, I think, for us of sequencing. For instance, if we are to make the most of geothermal potential, we need to start by creating an environment that enables the growth of heat networks and, crucially, protects consumers along the way. So to this end, the Department is bringing forward a market regulatory framework in January 2026 to improve consumer protection. We're also consulting on heat network zoning, which is an essential part of our plan to establish and accelerate our heat networks. And we think this will significantly increase private sector investment in the sector and remove some of the barriers. So we are committed to taking a long-term strategic view. We're trying to sequence it so that we do the Warm Homes Plan, we build the enabling environment for this, but I absolutely recognise the need for us to set a policy framework in which geothermal energy can thrive.
Will the Minister give way?
I will give way.
James Nation.
I thank the Minister for giving way. She knows that I really admire the work that she's doing in this space. The Warm Homes Plan that she mentions, this is more of a query than anything else. Is there a sense emerging of, out of the warm homes, 5 million properties, how many might be fed by district heating and associated technologies as a solution? Is there a crystallisation of what that construct might be to get us to the 5 million homes that we're targeting?
Miatta, Fahnbulleh.
Thank you to my honourable friend. So we know that there is a big opportunity, particularly in some of our urban centres for district heating, and the work that we're trying to do through the Warm Homes Plan is to think about where those opportunities are and to make sure that we are working with regional government and local government in order to do some of the planning and in order to do some of the identification of opportunities so that we can take a strategic approach, area by area, place by place.
I'm really grateful for all that the Minister is doing in this area. However, some of this is quite time sensitive. For instance, we've got this major development in York, the first phase going to planning in September, and we'd very much want to work with government to see what we can deliver on York Central. Would you be prepared to work with us to see if we can get this model working on some of these micro sites?
Miatta, Fahnbulleh.
Look, thank you to my honourable men. We are very, very keen to work with members across the House. We're very keen to work with local government and regional government. We've set ourselves a pretty challenging set of ambition, and so we are very, very clear that we need to work with anyone that is able to unlock and bring forward investment opportunities in order to realise it over the course of the Parliament. It would be remiss of me if I didn't say that, look, we recognise for all the opportunities that there are still challenges that are faced by industry in order to secure the necessary investment. And as a result, very few deep geothermal projects in the UK, as you say, are financially viable without government support as compared to what we see on the continent and in other countries. The Honourable Member mentioned the role of Great British Energy, and we are very clear that Great British Energy will provide further opportunities for investment in clean energy. The Great British Energy Bill sets out that clean energy means energy production from sources other than fossil fuels, including geothermal. So let me reassure him that it is within scope. And we will give clear direction. It is an independent organisation, but we will give it clear direction that it should be looking for all the opportunities that could be exploited across the country and different technologies like geothermal. Deployment at scale is also unlikely unless there is a demonstrable pathway to bringing down the cost of geothermal heat to make it comparable to other renewable technologies. We know this. This is why we've been working with stakeholders to improve our knowledge and our understanding in this area. In 2024, we commissioned a cost research project, as the Honourable Member referred to. We intend to publish that this year. I'm asking my officials to work at pace to do this, but let me reassure him that we will be engaging with industry prior to this publication, and he has my assurance that I will facilitate this to ensure that it happens. My honourable friend mentioned the British Geology Survey and commended them. I share his enthusiasm for them. We have commissioned work on open access tools that shows the technically viable opportunities for geothermal projects in the UK, and we will continue to work with them. The UK is also an active member of the International Energy Agency Technology Collaboration Programme on Geothermal Energy. That was a mouthful. And this has now enabled us to gather further learning and to learn from other international examples. All this is to say, we see the opportunity and we are trying to build the evidence base. We want to work with industry to think about how we unlock it, because we see it as a viable route to the expansion of heat networks and to deliver the objective of warmer homes and cheaper bills. So, look, let me conclude by saying this, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are absolutely committed to the project. We're absolutely committed to delivering warm homes. We need a range of technologies to do that. We know that. We cannot do this sprint on our own, and therefore we will always want to work with industry in order to enable us to get there. So thank you again to the Honourable Member for raising this debate, and my honourable friends for being such avid champions of geothermal. My department is very, very keen to work with you and look forward to meeting in due course.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Order, order.